uh, refute some of my opponent's advantages, I like to go state my two main advantages. First, that um, being anonymous on the internet causes cyberbullying. You see this time and time again on social media sites, teens bullying other teens. That has gone so far as to cause teens to commit suicide. There was a student at Rutgers. He was a gay student, and he had a video that was released online, and of him having sex, and he was bullied about it, and that outed him as gay, and he committed suicide, and all the people outing him, they were anonymous. I mean, you see all these people like sharing their personal stories. There's a woman who was on Tumblr. She shared a personal story about how when she was raped, and there's anonymous users called her a slut and a whore, and that said she deserved it. Luckily, she did not commit suicide. But you see that the cyberbullying is constantly there, and it's because of being anonymous and that cloak and that shield that being anonymous provides on the internet. Um, my second main advantage is that it diminishes freedom. First off, it discourages dialogue. And dialogue is kind of the foundation of this country. It's the most important aspect of the free speech is that free speech creates dialogue, and being anonymous on the internet discourages dialogue. And the reason this is because if I'm being anonymous on the internet or someone else is being anonymous on the internet, they're not providing like real arguments anymore. Most of them are being trolls. They're being rude. They're just saying hateful things, and you're not having that dialogue because you're not standing by your point. Abe Lincoln said silence makes cowards out of men, and this is that case. Being anonymous, just you're not standing by your point. You need to stand by your point, and that's how you create dialogue and encourage dialogue. And when you're being anonymous, you're not encouraging dialogue at all. And I like to, and another way I'd like to go into that is there was actually a couple that was awarded $13 million because people were accusing them of like sex crimes stuff on the internet, and they were awarded that, and they were caught because those people weren't anonymous, and they were able to catch them because they weren't anonymous. But if they were anonymous, they could have had that ability to be anonymous social media users and being anonymous, and they would not have been caught, and these people would not have been able to prove that those were lies. And my next point with diminishing freedom is that the deep web, and the deep web is just basically like a marketplace on the internet, for lack of a better term. There's small crimes, but there's also big crimes of like weapon sales and drug sales. It goes all the way up to assassination plots. And so you see how kind of that deep web, and this is obviously conducted anonymously because it's crime activity, and it's harder for the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA to catch these people because they're anonymous. And often a point is brought up about IP addresses and how people say, "Oh, you can always catch them by your IP address," and this just isn't true. I know many people that actually. I have a friend who her dad has a London IP address when they're in the United States, so that way he can watch BBC videos, and so you wouldn't. It would say that he's in London, his IP address, and when he'd be in Philadelphia. And so this is not the case. It's incredibly easy to bounce IP addresses and steal someone's IP addresses. It's done all the time. It's honestly one of the easiest things you can do. Anyone can do it. So that does not actually track you to that person's computer. It's used by hackers all the time. And now I'd like to go to refute some of my opponent's main points, main advantages, I should say. The first thing is she talked about the kind of the criminal aspect and said no criminal has been fully protected, but you have a hacker group called Anonymous, and basically what Anonymous does is they hack, and they're, as you can guess, anonymous, and they're not caught because they're anonymous and no one knows who they are, and so that can cause all this, that can cause bad things, because obviously they could do whatever they want. They could hack whoever they want because they're anonymous. So you have kind of so you do have criminals on the web who have been protected by this kind of the shield of being anonymous. She also talked about how it's not the responsibility of the people who post the information. It's about the users themselves have to look at the information, determine the arguments, and say whether they're good or bad. The problem with this is that myself, or like someone older, an educated person, 20s or 30s, they might be able to look at an argument and say, well, there's a fallacy there, that's wrong, this is wrong, it's bandwagon fallacy, like whatever they choose. But if a 12-year-old, 13-year-old is just on the internet and their parents says, okay, you can go on the internet for an hour, and they see this, they might just take this as fact without looking at the argument, without really caring. Or even someone who's older, 25, 30, 40, 50, they might see an argument that they like of something, maybe it's like they say, it's a view they support, and they're just like, oh yeah, I support that, like that makes sense. And they just take that as fact because they don't know who the user is. And so it is the user's part, but some people just don't know. They're not going to be able to realize what they're doing, and they're going to take this bad info as fact, and it's going to become kind of a fact in this interweb, and it's just going to create, and it's going to just diminish the freedom of society. Thank you.